The hotel that seemed to attract evil. If you've ever stayed in a cheap hotel, you probably know the feeling. The hallway is too quiet. The carpet smells old. The lights hum softly overhead. And every closed door feels like it's hiding a story. Now imagine a place with 700 rooms, nearly a century of tragedy. Serial killers, suicides, disappearances, and deaths so bizarre they still don't make sense. A place where the bad stories never seem to stop. This is the story of the Cecil Hotel. And the reason some people believe this building wasn't just unlucky, it was hungry. It opened in 1927. At the time, it was supposed to be elegant. A glamorous downtown hotel in the heart of Los Angeles, with marble floors, stained glass, and a grand lobby designed for businessmen, tourists, and couples visiting the city. But almost immediately, the world around it began to change. The Great Depression hit. The neighborhood around the hotel slowly collapsed into what would later become Skid Row. And as the streets outside grew darker, the people walking into the Cecil seemed to bring that darkness with them. At first, it was isolated incidents. A suicide here, a body there, a guest leaping from a window. Then another, and another. The staff got so used to ambulances pulling up outside that it barely caused anyone to look twice. But one death in particular made people wonder if the hotel itself was somehow becoming part of the story. A woman checked into the hotel alone. She was quiet, polite, and didn't attract attention. A few hours later, she climbed to an upper floor window. Without warning, she jumped. But what happened next is what made the story infamous. Below her, a pedestrian was walking along the sidewalk. The woman's body struck them with such force that it killed them instantly too. Two strangers, one choice. One random collision in a city of millions. And yet somehow it happened here, at the Cecil. Again, people called it tragic coincidence. But the coincidences kept stacking. Then came the men who made the hotel truly infamous. Not victims, predators. In the 1980s, one of the most terrifying serial killers in American history stayed there. Richard Ramirez. The Night Stalker. He would reportedly return to the hotel in the early hours of the morning, covered in sweat and sometimes blood, and walk straight through the lobby. No one stopped him. No one asked questions. The Cecil had become the kind of place where strange behavior disappeared into the wallpaper. People screaming in the night, doors slamming, footsteps in the hallway. Guests who stayed for one night and vanished by morning. Everything blended together, which made it the perfect hiding place. But Ramirez wasn't the only killer tied to the building. Years later, another murderer, Jack Unterweger, also stayed there while in Los Angeles. A man who had already murdered before. A man who was celebrated as reformed. And while staying at the Cecil, women in the city began dying again. Same pattern, same brutality, same fear spreading through the streets. It was as if the hotel kept opening its doors to the exact kind of people no city would ever want. And somehow, they always found their way there. But what really makes the Cecil terrifying isn't the killers. It's the ordinary people. The ones who arrived as normal guests and seemed to unravel inside. One long-term resident reportedly spent weeks telling staff that someone was following her through the hallways. She said she heard footsteps outside her room every night, slow, measured, stopping right outside her door. Then silence. At first, management assumed it was paranoia. The hotel had plenty of residents struggling with addiction, mental illness, or both. But then other guests began making the same complaint. Different floors, different nights, same footsteps, same slow pacing, same stop outside the door. And when security checked the hallways, no one, no movement, nothing. Just empty corridors and buzzing fluorescent lights. Now maybe that's just an old building settling, or maybe it was nerves. But in a hotel with this kind of history, every sound feels personal. Every shadow feels occupied, and every locked door feels temporary. By the time the 2000s arrived, the Cecil's reputation had become almost mythic. People didn't just stay there because it was cheap. They stayed there because they'd heard the stories. The suicides, the killers, the unexplained deaths. The sense that something about the place changed people. And that's what makes the final layer of this story so disturbing. Because buildings aren't alive. They don't think. They don't choose. But environments do something to people. A place can lower your guard, normalize chaos, make horror feel routine. At the Cecil, staff became desensitized. Guests ignored screaming. People stopped asking questions. And once a place reaches that point, it becomes the perfect ecosystem for evil. Not because it's haunted, because it's invisible. A place where the unusual no longer feels unusual. Where predators blend in. Where victims go unnoticed. Where despair doesn't stand out because it looks exactly like everything else. And maybe that's worse than any ghost story. Because it's real. Today, the building still stands in downtown Los Angeles. Renovated, rebranded. Its name changed in some parts of the property, but the stories remain attached to the walls. Some people believe it's cursed. Others say it's just a mirror. A building that reflected back the darkness of the city around it. But when one address keeps appearing in death after death, decade after decade, it becomes hard not to wonder whether some places develop a gravity of their own. Not supernatural, just psychological. A reputation so dark that it begins writing its own future. And maybe that's what the Cecil really is. Not a haunted hotel, but a place where enough terrible things happened that it taught the next terrible thing how to happen too. And that might be the most disturbing mystery of all. Because unlike ghosts, that kind of evil is real, and it can happen anywhere.